just to get more people joining. Okay, morning everyone. I think there will be more people joining, but there's people writing as well, and I think next week there's also people writing. So we are recording it again, and it will be on the streams and on the site later in the week. But let's start going. So again, we basically going to continue with the assignment 3, and basically going into more detail and looking at the problems and how we need to get to the answers. Some of it again, as I page and worked through it last night, it becomes more difficult, and suddenly then there's again an easy one thrown in. So I think that is also important for just again for your exam, that you guys need to, it's not that it follows this study guide. So your exam will be still the amount of questions, but the following of the exam can be anything. So, and luckily you guys can download the question and then look for the easy ones first to answer, and then look at the more difficult ones. Okay, so let's start at question 11, and how we would basically look at this and answer it. Can everybody see the screen? I think so. Okay, and I am watching the chat if somebody wants to answer or ask something, but we're also still a small group this morning. So if you want to ask me something, it's also fine to unmute and ask a question. Okay, so let's start with this one. So basically what we need to do here is, so we need to, and this is just nearly, I don't want to say simple maths, but it's not the integration or differentiation or anything like that. It is just you need to follow the rules. And in this case, when we want to work with the E, the rule that we need to look at is the linear rule. Okay, so when we look at the log rules, that is how we can get rid nearly of the E. So what we do is on both sides we log it. Okay, so when we basically log of E, so the rule then is that becomes 5D. So if you look at that whole term there, log of E to the power of 5D, that basically becomes 5D. On this side, it stays the same. So then basically we can divide by 5. So it's still then 1.2 to the power of 8. And if we divide that by 5, we get that D is equal to 0.292. So so that you can basically that you can put in a calculator. There's no other rules in there. It is basically you can do it on two ways, I think. Let me check. If you say, I just want to check my calculator. So if you set 1.2 to the power of 8, and you take then the ln of that, you basically get 4.3 is, if you take 1.2 to the power of 8, that is it's 4.3. If you take ln of that, it's 1.459, and if you divide that by 5, you get 0.292. I just want to check the other method that I had in mind. If it's not working, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, no, so that also works. So you can basically have set, and I think let's use a different color. That is also what you can do there, is that is equal to 8 times ln 1.2. So you could have then said, okay, ln of 1.2, I get the answer, I multiply by 8, and that whole thing I divide by 5, and I will get the same answer. So it is 0.292. I think the other thing that one needs to, how I would have done this in the exam, is if I didn't know what to do. If you look at that formula, you can't get a negative. So those two are already two of the answers that you can't get in the exam. So then if you needed to guess, so I'm just showing Mohammed's method here again. So if you only have two then to guess from, basically you have a 50% chance in the exam to get it right. So if you are stretched for time, there's certain things that you can already eliminate out of the options that they give you. But to get to it, you can use this way of calculating it. Okay, so that was question 11. Okay, so let's go to the next one. And if you want to ask something about it, please do. No problem. Okay, so question 12 as well. We basically, so again, not yet any differentiation or integration. Purely they're asking you to remember the log rules. And what is cool about this exam is you can actually have all the rules with you, so that if you need to get them, in a sense, it is easier. Okay, so let's quickly think, what do we have here? So if I look at the log rule, so let me write out a few. So I'm not going to include some of those. So let's say I had ln p plus ln q. I should have actually made more space for myself. But if I had that, I could have said that is ln p times q. Okay. And then if I had a rule to say ln q minus ln r, I could have had, the rule would have been and I'm going to take that away so it doesn't look like let's use the bracket. That would have been my rule, so that I could have had ln q, or let's rephrase it, ln and in brackets q divided by r. Okay, so if I look at those answers just as is, without even using the 3 and the 2 or anything like that, I already can eliminate that one. Okay, so what we did here is, if you had a x, and you basically took out the x, so the ln nearly, and you left with the rest, but that is definitely not one of the rules. So first one, that one you can totally eliminate. Okay, then I'm looking at some of the other options, and if you look at that one, it is not, so I'm not even looking at the 3. So it is, if I look at the p plus q, it's not a p plus q, so it must be a p multiplied by q. So in a sense, that one will also not work for me, because it is not p plus q, it is the multiplication. So I would have eliminated that as well. So now I'm sitting with these two options. And remember, when we worked here, I said ln 1.2 to the power of 8 is the same as 8 ln 1.2. So that is the other rule. So let's write that over. So I would have, before I've started working with that's weird. Okay. I would have done this already. So even before I start doing that, I would have written it in a format nearly as giving me the options. So okay. So if we have that, then we can say, okay, ln p to the power of 3 plus ln q. So let's use that. Okay, and then minus ln r squared, so we know that. So it is divided by the r squared, and it is basically that whole thing. Okay, and then we can look at the options, and then it is option 3. Okay, so that is, again, if you look at this option, I don't know how they got that, as it would have been for me a bit more confusing if I had it like 3 over 2, because then you can start thinking, okay, there's the 2, there's the 3, that maybe that needs to be in front of that. But otherwise, I don't know where they wanted to trick you with a 2. But there is only, in this instance, only one option, and that is option 3. Okay, cool. Thanks for the log rules there. That helps a lot. And that is nearly, in some of the previous exams, they give you the log rules, and in some instances they don't. So again, I don't know if in this exam, because you're downloading your exam paper, if there will be still a formula sheet at the back of the paper. But again, I'll send you my notes. I'll just need to write it out a bit clearer, and then I'll send you the things that I thought was important from formulas and those kind of things. So I will we'll still do that in a week, but you have it beforehand, and then you can also make notes on that paper. Okay, everybody happy with question 11 and 12? Okay, seems like it. If there's no complaints. Okay, let's go to question 13, and so it is 13 and 14 that we need to work with. Again, luckily in your case, and not like some of the other ones that, let's quickly see, a formula sheet and a table will be supplied. Okay, awesome. It will be nice if you have that beforehand, because then you can make notes on the tables and on the formula sheet. So if there's a old exam paper that somebody can download for me from my UNISA site and send that to me, because it will probably be very similar. Just send that to me, then I can look at the formulas and add a few more if I think you need more formulas. Because again, this is one of those years that luckily you have access to other means, so let's use that while we can. And please, not like you guys have said, not on the WhatsApp group. We're not going to do that like some of our other subjects. Okay, question 13. In question 13, they ask us, so let's look at it. The percentage Y of households possessing induction ovens T years after they have been introduced in a developed country is modeled by. Find the percentage of households that acquired induction ovens at their launch. Okay, this is a weird question, but maybe I must not read too much in it and not make it too difficult. So what I would have done is I would have looked at this and say, okay, at launch, that probably means that T is equal to 0. And then I just would have substituted T with 0. I don't see that we need to do anything else in this one. So I would have just said Y is equal to 100 minus 95 e to the power of minus 0.15 times 0. So that is what I would have done. I just want to see then, I think anything. So the minus 0.15 times 0 is 0. E to the power of 0 is 1. So we have 100 minus 95 times 1. So we have 100 minus 95, which is 5. So that would have been my answer. Can it be that simple? Because that is what I would have done. I don't see anything else in this one that says anything else. Let's just read the question again. Percentage of households possessing induction ovens T years after they have been introduced. So at launch, yes. So that would have been my way of doing this. interesting that, so in here, if I ask you, find the percentage of households that did not. So if I ask you that, that did not acquire it at launch, then it is basically 100 minus 5, which will give you 95%, which gives you that one. So if the question was, and maybe that is why there's a 95 in here as well, it could have been from a previous paper that it maybe said did not. So just that could be also, so just remember, if it's the opposite that they want, then you can basically still work it out for the same principle, but then just in the end, if it's not, then you just save 100 minus the 5 that you got there. But otherwise it was 5. Okay, happy with that. Let's go on to 14, which is just part of this one. So we still work with the same formula. And here they ask us the percentage Y of household possessing induction ovens T years after they have been introduced in a developed country is modeled by that. After how many years rounded to an integer is the percentage of household possessing induction ovens equal to 79%. Okay, so what would you have done in this instance? I want to get a bit of feedback. What would you have done? So anybody?
Hi, John. It's Lauren here.
Hi, Lauren.
So what I did was I would have made that equation equal to 79, and then you solve for t.
Okay, cool. And then what was your answer?
T is equal to 10.
Okay. So, and now I will also, so that was basically, so you would have said 79 is equal to 100 minus the 95 E minus 0.15 T, and then you will basically, first you need to take that to that side, so it would be minus 21 is equal to minus 95 e to the power of 0.15 t, and then you would basically need to start dividing, and then you will work out the t. And if you have a smart calculator, you can put that into the calculator. So that's the one way. And to quote Muhammad again, his method. So and that is, so if you are uncomfortable in what you need to do and how to get rid of that t when you start, because you will start using, I assume, the ln function again, because I would have said, okay, divided by 95 of minus 95, so it would have been something like this. Before we do that, so it would have been this, and then I would have said, okay, then we need to ln on both sides, so that would have been a number I'm not now going to calculate, but ln of e, so then I would have had something like that. And then you will probably need to say 21 divided by 95. Ln of that is minus 1.509, and that is equal to minus the 0.15 t, and then so the minus 1.509 divided by the minus 0.15, so then t gives me around 10,062, which is then that answer. Okay, so that is the correct method to use. So Muhammad's method, what he would have done is he would have said, okay, I'll substitute 20 in there, and then I'll see if I can get close to 79. Then if I'm not, I substitute 10 in there, and then I'll see if I get close to 79. So you would have basically used the formula that they give you, and you would have just substituted t instead of working out this one. So if you want to use Muhammad's Scully method, that's an easy one also to look at, because you're substituting, and basically you get then also that 3 was the closest answer, or the correct answer. Okay, so again, depending on if you are comfortable in doing this formula, do it, because when you get there. Otherwise, use the Muhammad method, and you will get the same answer. Okay, happy with that, guys? Let's quickly see. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Need to explain something again. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's go to question 15. So now suddenly they nearly take you back to some of the previous work again. So producer surplus. So sure, now I even need to remember this. So consider the market defined by the following demand and supply functions, where P and Q are the price and quantity respectively. So let's look at, the producer surplus of the product is. I just want to check the next one. And the next question may actually ask you the same formula, but we're asking you the producer surplus. Okay. Okay, so that's actually quite cool. And the answers are very similar to both of them. So then probably it will be interesting to see if the answers can be the same. That's going to be quite freaky. Okay, so let's look at what would you do in this instance. So how I look at it is I will draw the two functions. So, and for me, that is normally the P, that is normally the Q. So if I have, and how I do this is, so I'll work with that one first. So what I would do here, so if Q is 0, then I know that P is 58. because if that is 0, then I sit with P as 58. If P is 0, then I can work out something for Q as well. So if P D was 0, that means that if that is 0 is equal to 58 minus 2Q. So the 58 will go to that side, and that is equal to minus 2Q. Then I'll divide by minus 2 on both sides. So if I divide by minus 2 on both sides, I get Q is 29. So on here, Q will be 29. So now I know that is my demand function. So even if you didn't know how your demand function must run or how it normally looks, because normally it is demand and supply, but if you in the exam is like, oof, totally forgot how it looked like, an easy way to then just draw it for yourself is by substituting the Q as 0 and the P as 0, and you basically link the two points with one another. So let's do the same with the supply one. So again, for me, the easiest one is first when I look at when Q is 0. So that tells me that the PS will be 50. When that is 0, so when we look again to make it that one, so let's say PS is 0, we've got 50 plus 2Q. This one is going to be interesting. So that one is going to this side, so it's minus 50 equal to 2Q. So Q would have been minus 25. So all that is telling me is when I look at this, there's minus 25. We normally don't draw that. So let's make that another color. We normally don't draw that line in. When we normally looked at this, we would have drawn from there to there. And then we will say, okay, what is that point? And we will then work with that. So that is just for one thing. So if you have drawn this, we will always start at that point and then say, okay, there is your supply curve. Okay, so that is just to explain again how we do get to the two curves. So now I want somebody else to come in and say, okay, so how do I work out the producer surplus, and the next one will be the consumer surplus. So where is the producer surplus? Where is the consumer surplus? Okay, so let's anybody. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so let's first get where that point is, and then we can actually start having the next discussion. So that point is where the PD function or the demand function is similar to the supply. So let's work that out. So we've got so we've got the demand function equal to supply. So let's take the 50 to that side, so it becomes minus 50. So 58 minus 50 is 8. Let's take the Q to that side. So minus 2 becomes a plus 2. So we have 4 on that side. So then to get to Q, we say 8 divided by 4. So for Q, we have it as 2. Then I can basically put that 2 into any one of those formulas. I like to put it into that one because then I don't need to subtract anything. So if I put 2 in the supply function, 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 50 is 54. So I know that number there is 54. Okay, so the top triangle is which one, and the bottom triangle is which one? So is the top one producer surplus or consumer surplus? Okay, you need to dig deep now into the top one is consumer. Okay, cool. So basically, top one is consumer, bottom one is producer surplus. Okay, so we're basically going to answer both on this page when you don't need to copy and paste. Okay, very interesting. Also, nearly that if you look at those numbers, 58 to 54 is 4. 54 to 50 is also 4. So you will probably get the same answer for both because that is in the middle. Okay, so going back to maths, now we need to say, okay, let's first do the producer surplus. The way we calculate the producer surplus is by using some trigonometry and stuff, geometry, whatever you called that in maths. So we need to basically work out the area. So it is a half times the base. The base there is 2, so a half times 2 times the height. And the height is basically the difference between the 54 and the 50. So that is times 4. So a half times 2 is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, so the answer for the producer surplus would have been 4. So let's do the consumer surplus as well on this slide. So again, the same formula for the consumer surplus, half times base times height. So again, it is half, the base is exactly the same, times 2. And here the height is the 54 minus the 58 minus the 54, which is also 4. So in this instance, the consumer surplus is also 4. So weird, but it is exactly the same. And the only reason is because if you look at those functions, It is because the equilibrium is halfway between those 2 points. Okay, thanks. The consumer surplus, producer surplus is all on page 28 to 31, just to go back to that. But I also have, I know I've got a nice, in my summary pack, I've got a nice way of showing that as well. Okay, so basically that was 2 questions in one. Let's be honest, I don't think that will be that simple in the exam. One of them, yes, but I can't see, maybe they will surprise me with this, but I can't see that they would use the same formula nearly for you to work out both. So in this instance, it was just so that you know the principle, but I can't see that they would in the exam basically give you a question like this that you use the same for both. Okay, happiness with those two, because the next one is a bit more difficult. Okay, I assume if everybody's quiet, it's all because you're asleep or because it is fun. Okay, cool. Okay, let's look at question 17. So here it becomes a bit more difficult. So again, we first need to work out the equilibrium. Okay, so while I see all the thumbs ups, if the chances that you're new to this group is very slim, but if you are, we have a WhatsApp group as well that is more than just a WhatsApp group for DSC. It's also a moral support group and I think a gin lovers group as well. But if you're not on the group yet and you want to join it, send me a WhatsApp on 0837908387. I will put that into the chat now as well, and you can just ask me to be part of a WhatsApp group. We do share a lot of information in there, even on some of the other subjects as well. So yeah, and it is a moral support group as well. Okay, let's go back to question 17. So basically they ask us, they give us a demand and supply function. It is not your normal demand and supply function as in question 15 and 16, as you would have seen. There is power to the 2 at both of them, but at least we can still work with the p's to get to an equilibrium. And then they ask us to find the producer surplus. Okay, so this is not as simple as just saying, because it's not a linear graph, we can't just do that. Okay, so let's get to what we need to do. So first principles, let's work out where the equilibrium is. So this graph would, and just for this instance, I don't know where the things will cut through, but let's say it will look something like this. So this will be your 2 graphs, and you will need to nearly work out the producer surplus of that. Okay, so let's quickly start with it. So first you need to basically work out those 2 points. As in the linear where we worked out the equilibrium, we will need to work out the equilibrium in this as well. And the equilibrium is where the two graphs basically meet. So let's look at the formula. So it is 35 minus and we say that is equal to 3 plus q to the power of 2. Okay, so let me take all the q's to this side. We're going to make the whole formula to this side, but I at least work with positive. So when I move it to that side, you get 2q to the power of 2. When I move a 35 to this side, it becomes negative. Negative 35 plus 3 gives me negative 32. Okay, so now we could have, what I would have done is, I would have said, okay, get rid of a 2. So then you get u minus 16. And then, okay, this is actually quite good. So there's actually a formula that we don't need to go to the, I think we looked at it last week and I've written it down somewhere so that we don't need to go to the x equal to minus b plus minus b squared minus 4ac, the square root of that divided by 2a. So at least we don't need to go that route, because this is actually one of the nice ones that we have. To get to 16 is minus 4 and plus 4. So I'll change that now. So minus 4 and plus 4, if you multiply those two together, you will get minus 16. Just the middle term, the minus 4, the plus 4, so that will cancel out. So there isn't a middle term. So the q's is actually 4 and minus 4. So this graph is a bit wrong. So how this would have looked like in practice is probably more something like that, where that would have been, I assume, the 35. That would have been probably the 3. So in practice, it would have probably been more something like that. So that is 4, that is minus 4, so that we don't get confused with the 3 as well. Okay, why didn't that want to disappear? No! No! Okay. Okay, that's not going to help. Can you guys still see this? Even if it did crash on my side. Okay, I thought so. Okay, I need to share again the, okay, can you see it now? Okay, cool. Okay, so let's do this from the start. Oh, let's just save that it doesn't crash on me again. Okay, so how that formula would have looked like over the graph. So I don't know where it goes through there. I don't need to know. So that have been 35, that have been 3, that would be -4, and that will be 4. Okay, so that is how your graphs would have looked like. I just normally do this so that I can make it easier for myself. So don't worry, you don't need to draw that in the exam or anything. You can just work with the formula. So we know that Q's are equal to 4 over -4. So the thing with, if you look at demand and supply, so again, you can't produce a negative amount. So in this instance, we're not going to look at the -4. So the same was here. So I've drawn that in, but when we look at these things, we don't look at the Q that is negative, because again, you can't really create -25 products. So in this instance, we will also not look at this side of the equation. Okay, and I think that is also important when you work out some of these kind of functions, even if it is in this instance, we don't look at the negative, because again, in economics, it doesn't make sense. You can't produce something that is negative. Okay, so we have the Q. Now we need to work out what is the price. So we have a Q here as 4. We now need to work out what that p-value is. Okay, so basically what we do is, in any of those two formulas, we can substitute the 4 back. So I would use the top one. So it is 35 minus 4 to the power of 2 is 16. So 35 minus 16 is 19. Okay, so we know that the PV is 19. So okay, so let's do that again. Okay. So we know that that point is 19. Okay, so now we need to work out the producer surplus of that. Okay, so now it is not as simple as just saying, okay, 19 minus, and then we get to the answer. So again, what would you do for this one if this was in the exam? Which I nearly think they will probably do something like this in the exam. Okay, so what would you do if this was in the exam? Okay, anybody? Difficult one. Okay, so let's quickly, so you need to calculate for producer surplus. So two things we will calculate. So the first thing we will calculate, and I think that is, so let me use different colors. Okay, so out of this one, we knew the consumer surplus is the top part, the producer surplus is the bottom part. So we basically need to get that. That part is nearly, and yes, it should be bigger because that portion between 3. So let's make it a bit bigger, but we can just, okay, so we need to get that. And if it was a straight line, then it's easy because you basically say the 1/2 times space times height, you will get that. But this is not as that easy. But we've got ways of calculating it. So we can calculate this part by integration. So we can calculate that part by integration from 0 to 4. We know what the formula is for that. And then we can say, well, that part is a square, or what do you call it? So you can take the square, or if it's a rectangle, you can basically take that and subtract that part that we will calculate, and then you will have your producer surplus. So it's not the easy way. There's maybe you can work some of it out on the calculator, but basically it's saying, let's look at that whole square. You have that, you have the part that you need to take away. So how the formula looks like is, so the producer surplus is the whole square, which is the length of P times the length of Q. So just to make it already, to see what that is, it's 19 times 4. So it is that length, the 19, times that length, the 4. Okay, so that will give us that whole area. So that gives us that whole area. So let's say that was the other one that is in there. Okay, so that gives us the whole area of the 19 and the 4. Okay, so that is for 1. And then we say, okay, but let's subtract that part, and that is by doing the integration. So let's look at that. So we say it is from 0 to Q. Remember, Q is 4. Okay, so the other question is, what formula are we using? Are we using the demand, or are we using the supply? So which formula is the one that is going up? Because if you use the wrong formula, you will get a wrong answer. Okay, supply. So which one is that? Supply, and that is demand. Okay, so basically you use the supply function, and the supply function then is Okay, sorry, that looks terrible. Okay, and now how do you do that part? Okay, so let's first do this part. This is the easy one. 19 times 4, so which is 76. Okay, so before we look at working out that, at this point I would have said again in the exam, and this just another tip, but nothing in here is now. So I would have looked at that and I would have said, okay, if any of those numbers are bigger than 76, I would have cancelled it out. If any of those numbers are negative, I would have cancelled it out. And you can see from what we've drawn here, it will not be 0. Okay, so we know out of all of these numbers that we have, it can't be 0 because it can only be 0 on that line. But here we have it between 0 and 4, so there's no ways it can be 0, your answer. Okay, so how would you calculate this? What would you have done in the exam? Anybody can unmute and tell me. This is nearly like I would have asked in the class as well. So anybody, at least you don't need to show your face. So not under pressure, but anybody that wants to quickly say what they would have done.
Hi, Jean.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, and you?
I'm fine. My name is Zainab.
Alright, cool. Zainab.
Okay. I would have found the integral of the formula.
Yes.
So of course we use integration rules. So the formula would be 3q plus q to the power 3 divided by 3.
Okay, cool. So that is what you would have divided by 3, and you will basically...
And then you just substitute, of course, 4 into q, and then you subtract 3, and then you substitute 0, which gives you 0. So
cool.
It is basically substituting for 4 into the q.
Awesome. Okay, and I think that for me is also because there's a q in there, if you substitute the 0 in there, it's going to be 0 in any case. So that automatically makes it that you only need to substitute 4 in there. So let's quickly see. If I substitute 4 in there, it's 3 times 4, which gives me 12. If I substitute 4 in there, it is 4 to the power of 3, which gives... wait. 4 to the power of 3 gives me 64. So 64 divided by 3 will give me something with a comma, so that would be equal to 21.333. So if I say 21.333 plus 12, I would get... Okay, this is fascinating actually, 33.33, which is there, but that's not what we want to get. So it is 76 minus that, which gives us the 42 0.667. Just I'm using lots of decimal places still, and then if we round it off, it will be the 42.7. Also, so it's interesting. So if you only did the integration part and didn't do the part that you need to look at for a whole, there would have been an answer for you as well. So that for me is quite interesting to see that. I just want to see. Okay, so the next question isn't. So probably if you used the demand function, that would have been probably your answer. I'm just taking a stab here, but that would have probably been your answer. Yeah, I'm not going to work that out now, but that would have probably been your answer. So the answer for this one is then option 3. But it's for me interesting that there's the option with even if you don't subtract, and that will probably have been the answer if you used the demand curve. So if you want to practice this one and see if you can calculate the consumer surplus, check if that was actually not the consumer surplus. That is nearly extra practice if you want to. Okay, happiness with that. I think what is important here is, unless you can do it with your calculator, there's not really an easy way of doing this, so it does take time. And again, probably if you made the wrong choice in if it was supply or demand, then there is probably a different answer for you as well. Okay, happiness with this one. Let me just save it. But it doesn't crash again. Okay, everybody happy? Can we continue to the next one? Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, the next one. Okay, this you will get in the exam. So there's not even a question about it. Something like this you will get in the exam. Quite interesting, the answers. Sure. Okay, so there's not even one that I can from the start want to say I want to eliminate. And when there's not, if, okay, so let's do it this way. I know some of the calculators you can import that and you can get an answer. Let me quickly check if my one app can do that. That would actually be quite fascinating. I'm checking now if okay, it doesn't want to snap the picture from. Okay, no, it didn't. I will write it out in my writing and see if I can use the app, and I'll send you the link to the app as well. So with this one, basically, you need to solve for the 3 equations. If the options was given as B equal to, I'm just making something up now, Q equal to 3, what is I want? R equal to 0. If I have given you 4 options of that, maybe. I'm just writing now down a few. So if I've given you that, you could have then substituted some of those answers back into that and use the Muhammad way. That is, and that's why I think they changed it to you actually need to solve something, and you need to solve all 3 because you need to get. And this instance, what is also different is, I think in assignment 1 or 2, they talked about you need to get to the sum of the 3. Here they talk about the product. Okay, so you need to, whatever the answers is, you need to say P times R times Q. And that needs to give you one of the answers. And that is why, because you need to do the product, you can get the negatives as well. If it was just purely maybe sum, then probably chances of a negative is less, but with product, it can be anything. Okay, so how I normally look at this is, I try to solve it to see where's the quickest way of getting to an answer that I can get R, or I can get Q, or I can get P. So I would have, and again, this is basically, you guess what you want to do. There's not like a silver lining or silver bullet or anything like that, that suddenly it just happens. So what I would have done is to say, if I add options 1 and 2, then I know that P will fall away. Then I'm only sitting with Q and R. So that is what I would have done. So I would have said, let's say equation 1 plus equation 2. So I know the P's will fall away. Q plus Q is 2Q. 2R plus 2R is 4R. Okay, so that would be my new equation. Okay, so that would be my equation 4. Okay, so then I can say, okay, let's look at equation 3. It also has Q, also have R. So if I write down equation 3 here, I have 2Q minus 4R. And now I have forgotten something. I also need to add those two. So I added those, and that is equal to 8. So then if I look at the third one, 2Q minus 2R, and again I have, it just shows how easy one can make a mistake. 2Q minus 2R is equal to 2. Let's just make sure that that is now right. I just want to make sure that is right again. Okay, so now we have something with a Q, something with a R, so now we can actually hopefully eliminate as well. So I would have said the easiest for me is to say I get rid of the Q's. So that was equation 4. So I would have now said, okay, let's take equation 4 and we subtract equation 3. Okay, so 2Q minus 2Q is 0. 4R minus 2R is 6R. and that is equal to 8 minus 2 is 6. So now I know R is equal to 1. Okay, then I have R is equal to 1. Okay, cool. There's awesome. Thanks. There's also in the chat, there is a link to a website that can do it for you. As it is online, please use that website. Okay, so then I would have substituted for R, so at least my R is correct so far. I would have substituted for R back into equation 3. So you will have 2Q minus 2, R was 1, and that is equal to 2. So 2Q is equal to, remember that will become minus 2. Minus 2 goes to that side, so it is 2. So 2 plus 2 is 4. So 2Q is equal to 4. So Q is equal to 2. Okay, so at least I'm still correct on that one. And now you can use the Q and the R into any one of those. I don't like to work with negatives, so I'll put it into equation 2. So P plus Q, which was 2, plus 2 times R, which is 1, is equal to 0. So P plus 2 plus 2, so it's plus 4, is equal to 0. So P is equal to minus 4. Okay, so that is also correct for according to the website. So now you need to remember it's the product. So minus 4 times 2 times 1 is equal to minus 8. Okay, and then you have option 4. Okay, so please, yes, use that website, I think, for the exam, as most other sources that you can use. So it is the Wolfram Alpha website, that there's a lot of other useful tools there as well. Okay, cool. So please use the easier routes to get to this, because this was, if you nearly look at when we started this, it was 2022. So it took me nearly 9 minutes, and there's no other shortcut really for this. So please, please, please use other sources to get to this. Okay. Happy with this? Then we can do one more and finish for this Saturday. Okay. Okay, so the next one is nearly, this was something that you've done in assignment 1, I think. So it is now taking you, and that was also assignment 1. So it is nearly that. Again, please, when you in the exam, do the stuff that is the easiest for you to do first, just to get that motivation going. So this for me is, I like this. So this for me is more is easier than the integration and things like that. Okay, so let's read through this and let's see what is in here that for the guys that was in that first, when we still did the nearly the first or second class, I like to how it was structured, the table nearly. So, and I don't know yet what is in there, but it's nearly, let's populate the table to get to the answers. Okay, so Susan takes Maxivite Health and Health High vitamin tablets every day to increase her energy levels. One Maxivite tablet contains 40 grams of iron and 10 grams of vitamin B1. Okay, while one health tablet provides 10 moles of iron and 15 moles of B1. How many tablets of each vitamin should she take if her doctor has recommended that she take at most 240 grams of iron and at least 200 or 2,100 multigrams of, not multigrams, of vitamin B+1. Okay, and they tell us X is the number of Maxivite. So we can say X is the number of Maxivite. Y is the number of Health High. So we know that the other two that we are working with here is iron and then the B+1. So let's say your iron supplement and your B+1. Okay, so that is how my grid will look like. Here I will have, they tell us the recommended. So if it was a costing function, that would have been cost or maximum or minimum. So they tell us that she takes at most 2,400. So remember, at most means small or equal to, she can't take more than that, and at least 2,100. So at least is she must take 2,100 or more. Okay, so that is those two. Okay, so let's look at the first option. 40 of iron. So it's basically 40x. And with that 40x, she needs to take 10 of B1. And then if we look at, wait, no. She needs to take 10. No, I'm right. Sorry. I'm now confusing myself here. That is the B1. And then the next one health tablet produces 10. And the other one, 15. Okay, so let's just save before it crashes. Just make 100% sure. Okay, so your formulas basically, so for 40x plus for 10x smaller or equal to 2400. So let's look at options. 40x plus 10x. Okay, so that one works for us thus far. 40x plus 10x. Can't work with that one because it's bigger. 10x plus 40y. Big, smaller or equal to 24, so no. 10x plus, okay, so already nearly with that we eliminated and our answer is 1. But let's just look at the other option. 10x plus 15y must be bigger or equal to 21. Okay, so there we have it. That one would have been smaller. That one was the other way around, so also not correct. That one was also the other way around. And then this is just always added because again, that one was totally wrong in any case, because again, you're producing the 2 tablets and you need to produce more than 0. You can't produce negative number of tablets again. So that's why that one at the bottom couldn't even be, because you can't produce negative. So here that is just added as always, so that to say that both of them needs to be a positive production. Okay, so that would have been question 19, option 1. And this one again is not really an easy way of getting to the answer. I don't know if there's any calculator or formula or website that can answer this for you. Okay, so that is our hour and a half for today. So for the next, okay, and that is great on the study guide, page 51 to 38 in the study guide. Cool. Then at least you have a reference also to that. So next week we'll definitely finish this. It looks like we're doing about 10 questions in a session. So next week, even if we go a bit over, we'll finish the session. Okay. So that is it for today. Is there any questions on your side at the moment? At least we've got some time still with this. I think we fortunate with this subject that we at least have more time than some of the other subjects. So any questions from your side? Please ask. You can ask on our WhatsApp group as well. And yeah, again, if you're not there yet, my number is in the chat that you can send me a WhatsApp and we'll add. Okay, so for everybody writing in the week, good luck. And we'll chat again on Teams next week, but else we'll chat in the chat with lots of support for the rest of the guys as we go along this week. Okay, have a great week, everyone. I'm gonna stop the recording as well, and it will be available again for you later, hopefully today, but I assume